Today I want to talk about my favorite homeschooling books as a mom. Hey guys, a video that I've had requested a few times now and finally am getting around to creating here is my favorite homeschool books for moms. I couldn't think of the correct terminology here. There's kind of like a mix of parenting books and homeschool books and education books and just a mishmash that have helped me as a mom in my homeschool journey, and hopefully these will be helpful for you as well. I'm going to apologize right now. My dishwasher is finishing up. I'm a homeschool mom. My dishwasher is amazing. It's going to make some background noise, but you know what? I'm going to have clean dishes in the end, and that's more important than perfect noise in the video. Okay, I think I have like 10 to 13-ish books on the list here. I don't own all of them. I do really enjoy owning books. Like if you've watched any of my videos here or on my booktube channel, you'll probably know that. But I do find that the books that I'm going to talk about today are generally fairly expensive. I really enjoy owning books, but for the most part I get really discounted books. Either I buy them at thrift stores or I buy them online at places like Book Outlet or something, and so often these kinds of books are hard to find there. So I own about half of the books on this list. Okay, let's just start with my very favorite one, and this is Seasons of a Mother's Heart. I don't talk about this book enough. This is by Sally Clarkson. I think a lot of her books could be on this list. Her new one, A Waking Wonder, I haven't read yet, but I'm really excited to get to. But this one really speaks to me as a mother. Sally seems like a nice, gentle, sympathetic, wonderful mother, and I feel like I have a lot I could learn from her, and a lot from this book jumps out at me and kind of makes me realize like areas where I could do better. What I really do like about this book is that it's set up seasonally, especially this year. I'm like so getting into the different seasons here with fall, and I just want to embrace the seasons. But this book I find really good for reading in the spring and at the beginning of the homeschool year. She talks about a lot about, you know, analyzing your homeschool and finding your kids' passions, and I feel like so much is covered in a short 200 pages. I have highlighted this book as I've gone through it so many times. Like, there's some highlights. More. There's just so much in here that I love, and every time I read it, more jumps out at me. I did find this one on Amazon. It was, I think, a used copy. Oh yes, because it has an inscription, Kim, for a friend who's close to my heart. Yeah, I would highly recommend reading this book, and it's time for me to do a reread. Okay, my dishwasher finished, so it should be much quieter in the background now. The next book is one that I recently read, and that is Adventuring Together by Greta Eskridge. This book spoke to my heart, and now maybe it's because we've kind of been stuck at home a lot lately, but really it's all about having adventures as a family. Now, I love the idea of traveling around the world with my family. Like, I'm so there. But between, you know, like a worldwide pandemic, and we are also fostering, which means we can't leave the province without permission, we're stuck here right now. And I'm glad that fostering and the pandemic are coming at the same time, because then I feel like two things means we definitely need to stay here. But after reading this book, it really made me realize that there's things we can do around here locally, and we've been finding different places that we've never been. We've been exploring, we've been hiking, and even just creating a family bucket list. The kids wanted to do a family games night every week and a family movie night every week, and we've been doing that. And I feel like this book is going to give us, it's given me the push to do more things with my kids, and it's helping us to create a lot of great memories. Next up is a book I have read 2 or 3 times, and I should really own like all these books on this list. It's The Highly Sensitive Child. Oh, reading this book was just like light bulb moment after light bulb moment after light bulb moment. So I realized that I am a highly sensitive person, which mostly just means, I think it was in the book, it describes like, you know how you have like a sieve and you have a bunch of holes. Well, It's like a highly sensitive person has like fewer holes than the normal person, I think. So you can only take in so much at a time. For me, like if there's two things going on, like if both my kids are talking to me at once, I'm just like, whoa, like I need one at a time. And I'm raising a highly sensitive child. And this book has helped me realize like some different strategies that I can use, you know, especially when they were younger and when, you know, clothing kind of bothers them, like itches in one way or something. That book was incredibly helpful in just helping my child emotionally, helping me understand myself. And there is also, she wrote another book, The Highly Sensitive Person, I think. And honestly, I would just like skip over that book, even if you feel like you are highly sensitive. Just read The Highly Sensitive Child. It's written so much better. And I learned so much, and that has really shaped my parenting. So on this list, I'm going to have some Charlotte Mason kind of books, some classical schooling books, and some unschooling. So this next one is an unschooling one, and that is an unschooling manifesto. This is a super short ebook. You can get it on Amazon for like $3. I have reread this book so many times, and it always just reminds me like how much kids learn when they're interested in learning and they have control over the things that they're learning. I struggled in school, not because I wasn't smart, my grades were average, but I really struggled with understanding why we were learning what we were learning. I realized years down the road after reading a book, The Four Tendencies, by someone whose name I'm forgetting right now. I'm a rebel. So that means if I don't know why I'm doing something or the reason behind something, I won't do it, or I won't do it with a good attitude at least. And that has helped me in our homeschooling, realizing like if kids know why they're learning something, it makes the whole process much more enjoyable. And so I feel like this unschooling manifesto really kind of helped ease some of my fears in some places where I was like, oh, like, are we doing enough there? Are we gonna have some cracks or whatever? And that book has just been really instrumental in our homeschool. This next one, a friend actually sent to me. Her channel here is Sodbuster Living on YouTube, and this is a pocketful of pinecones. This is a really good book for nature study. Now, it's written out like a story. It's a mother and her two kids, I think. I read this a couple years ago, and I'm so excited to have my own copy. And it's just her journey of learning nature study with her kids and them going out and doing all the things. There's some like cute illustrations. When I read this one last year or the year before, it just was a really big push to get out in nature and maybe not like know all the things or learn all the things, but just observe and then look up the things that we're interested in. And the subtitle here is Nature Study with the Gentle Art of Learning. And I feel like that's exactly what this book is. Next up is the Read Aloud family. Now, I have listened to the Read Aloud Revival podcast since the beginning. I haven't listened so much in this last year, but I love all the book recommendations that Sarah Mackenzie gives. I love making book lists on my site as well because I have slightly different tastes than her. But the Read Aloud family was a really good read and really shared how important reading together as a family is. And it just showed the value of read alouds and having that time together and the family culture that you can create through books. Okay, this next one I got from the library a few times, and then I found it for sale in my library sale, so they must have not had enough people taking it out. But this is the core. So this is Teaching Your Children the Foundations of Classical Education. Way out of my like unschooling like norm. But this book I found very interesting. One of the biggest things that I took away from here was it was talking about how to teach kids geography and how you start by, here, let's see if I can find it. So you start by learning the great circles. So you learn like the different continents and the circles that they have. And then next is the prime meridian and international date line. And then the kids draw those. And then you learn adding Africa, continental blobs, labeling the oceans. Anyway, it's just interesting concept of teaching kids to learn geography and like be able to draw it. I just thought that was something that was never covered in school when I was in school, but it's kind of a cool ability, I guess, to be able to do. So while we don't school classically, I do still think that there are things that I've learned from this. And as my kids get older, like every few years, I'm gonna go back and look at this again and see if there's some things we want to incorporate or try. And this was definitely a stretch for my brain, but I think also in a really good way. Okay, going back to Charlotte Mason. This is written by the same person as Pocketful of Pinecones, so I probably should have had this one first. But this is the Charlotte Mason Companion. So if you've ever been interested in the Charlotte Mason method, you've probably read this book. And I love the Charlotte Mason method. Honestly, if I could have my ideal homeschool, in some ways I do feel like it would be Charlotte Mason, at least heavily Charlotte Mason, but it doesn't work with my personality. That being said, there are lots of things that we have taken from here over the years. So she goes through living books, narration, teaching composition, picture study, music appreciation, so many things here. History, nature study. There's 49 chapters. So there's a lot in here, and I've highlighted lots, and every year I try to incorporate a little bit of Charlotte Mason into our days, and I do think that there's a lot of good stuff from this method, but following it completely does not fit my style or our family's style. One that I recently read is Homeschool Bravely. I found this one to be a really good book if you are just getting into homeschooling. I feel like she covers a lot of things that will help you to be reassured in your homeschool journey. I think her methods are a little bit more Charlotte Mason, maybe even classical. She definitely has more of a structure and a routine than we do, but there was some really good points that she had in that book as well. And then another one that I listened to lately is The Call of the Wild and Free. While the author does use the Charlotte Mason method in her homeschool, I feel like she was really speaking to my unschooling heart. The author is the person that started the Wild and Free group, and I feel like she covers some really good information. So she goes back and she explains all the main homeschool philosophies out there. Actually educational philosophies are not even all homeschool philosophies. And I learned so much in there, even though I have researched a bunch of these philosophies before. There was so much good information. I would like to get my hands on the physical copy because I was just listening to the audio from the library, but I think that would be a really good one to read aloud. And then they obviously talk about the importance of getting out in nature, because that's kind of what Wild and Free is. They talk about gathering as groups, which is, I guess, slightly weird at this time, but I do feel like there was a lot of good information in that book. One that I don't think that I've really ever heard any homeschool person talk about is a book that came out last year. This is not a homeschool book, but it's the Life and Faith Field Guide for Parents. So this is just like a Christian parenting book, and this guy based it off of whatever, he was like a Boy Scout or something, and they have a field guide. And this is kind of just all the information you need to know to be a parent, pretty much. So, I should say as a Christian parent. Part 1 is skills and habits for Bible engagement. So it's how to prepare your child to read the Bible, how they should read the Bible in elementary, how they should read the Bible when they're advanced, how to see Jesus in the Old Testament, how to study the Bible, how to interpret the Bible, how to apply scriptures for your life. These are all chapters that you read, and then it gives you practical ways to do this with your kids. Part 2 is skills and habits for interacting with God, skills and habits for interacting with other people, skills and habits for discernment and decision making, skills and habits for mental and physical health, skills and habits for character development, skills and habits for engaging culture, for learning, for managing conflict, and for evangelism. So there's how to develop a conscience, how to develop biblical discernment, how to sleep, how to manage stress, how to deal with fear and anxiety, how to tame your tongue, how to develop virtuous habits, how to watch a movie, how to look at art, how to study, how to focus, how to handle family conflict, how to tell a Bible story, how to share the gospel. That was just some of the chapters in this book. I don't know why people aren't reading it. I don't know why I didn't share about it last year after I read it, because I think this is one that more parents should read. What I should do is, this really isn't like go and read through the entire book. I did that though. What I should make a point of doing is referring back to this when I want to do certain things with my kids, because now reading through the chapters, I'm like, oh, what did they say in this chapter? Because that wasn't as applicable when I read it last year, but it could be applicable now. So this is one I would highly recommend picking up. Actually, this is a book that my husband heard about and he bought, and he doesn't buy very many books. So like, that's high praise. Okay, this next one is Reading Magic. This is really just the art of teaching your kids how to read. It says why reading aloud to our children will change their lives forever. But in this, Mem Fox really just talks about the simplest way to teach your children to read. Now, this isn't how I taught my kids to read necessarily, but I see so much value in her methods. I think as parents, we kind of start freaking out that our kids are never going to be able to learn to read. So we try to push them into, completing these curriculums and reading all the books and pushing them before they're ready. When I feel like she has just a lot more patience, and it's more of a slow but enjoyable build to learning to read. And I wish I would have listened to this book more when I was teaching my kids to read, but you live and learn. Okay, and then another parenting book. This is Triggers, which is Exchanging Parents' Angry Reactions for Gentle Biblical Responses. And this also, kind of like the Life and Faith Field Guide, is broken down into different sections. So, there's section 1 is external triggers and section 2 is internal triggers. So it's like different triggers that they would have, or you could have for your anger, I guess, like strong-willed kids, sibling rivalry, overstimulation, and then internal triggers like lack of faith, exhaustion, running late, all the noise, roughhousing. And then each chapter gives you great biblical responses, lots of Bible verses, and then how you're supposed to take that and respond. And this was very helpful for me when my kids were younger, and I just was struggling with, I guess, a lot of their emotions, as well as just struggling with not having enough me time and feeling overwhelmed, I guess. I did find this book really helpful then. Okay, and the very last book on this list is probably the first homeschool book that I ever owned, and that is The Well-Trained Mind. This book is pretty much all you need to know to give your kids a classical education. Once again, not the kind of education that we do, but for the first number of years, I used this, especially her science. She breaks it down. I'll have to look back here. So for science, for the first few years here, she breaks it down like first grade is life science, which is animals, human beings, and plants. And then she's got like tons of information on here, how to go about that. Then grade 2 is earth science and astronomy. And grade 3 is chemistry. And I followed this pattern for my daughter for the first few years. And then grade 4 is supposed to be physics. And then we just did our own thing, grade 4 and onward. But I found this to be a really good way, especially for me, science is not my subject, for me to be like, oh yeah, we need to cover that, or it's something we should discuss. So if you aren't going to teach your kids classically, I would just say, try seeing if your library has this. I originally got it out from the library, and it might be a good resource. Like she has, in the back, she's got like an appendix with tons of different resources for each subject to look into. This one is, I think, her like 3rd edition or whatever, and she's since put out a new edition. But this was a really good resource, especially when I was just starting out, coming off of my education degree, and wanted some more rigid guidelines, I guess, to follow. So there you have it. Those are some of my favorite homeschool books. I think I didn't forget any, but I might have. So those are most of my favorite homeschool books, and hopefully this has helped you, inspired you. You can get your hands on some of these. If you have favorite homeschool books yourself that I did not include, let me know. There are more that I have read before, like Teaching from Rest by Sarah Mackenzie and Give Your Child the World by Jamie Martin. And like, I enjoyed those books, but I feel like the ones that I shared today are like my absolute favorites. So yeah, let me know your favorite homeschool books, and I will see you next week in a different video.